Hello, this is Nick from Breaker Press Games, and this is the Breaker Press update for December 11th, 2022. Alright, so let's talk about what's been going on with Breaker Press Games. So, we're going to start off with Patreon. The Patreon rewards, the physical rewards, were sent out for November and December. This is something that I talked about in the last video at length, but this is what's been sent out. This is the Canine mini-zine. This blue cover version, as opposed to a white cover version, is the Patreon-specific version. It is a zine that allows you to slide this across the table, and the player will be able to have everything that they need in order to play that particular character class. When I was at GameholeCon, I ran Gesh of the Multiverse, or as part of Gesh of the Multiverse, I ran Tragedy of Woodwitch Rise. Part of Gesh of the Multiverse is highlighting each of your individual universes, and so you have your unique character classes, and I had to pass around copies of Rabid Dogs, and this would have allowed me to just slide the thing across the table that they need instead of having a bunch of other stuff for them to flip through. And so I think it is a very handy little tool. You know, I don't expect it to be the hottest seller on the Goodman Games website, but I do think it is a positive thing. And so we shipped out these to the Patreon backers. This Canine zine, in addition to having all of the rules from the Canine from Rabid Dogs, additionally has some new charts, like some Canine-specific equipment, because everybody seems to want to eventually buy their dog some armor. There is common Canine names in Stennard, and some cool art. This is a... oops. I do this every time. Carlos Castillo stock art. So, highly recommended. Patreon backers got this for free in November, but you will be able to get it from the Goodman Games web store. You can get it on DriveThruRPG. You can get it on itch.io. So these things are available. The Bruiser, similar. All the rules for the Bruiser plus a equipment chart specific to them. Their own sample Mighty Deed, the Stunning Blow, along with one of the things that I noticed in the Dungeon Crawl Classics rulebook is that there really isn't a crit table that is specific to unarmed combat. So I made a Bruiser unarmed combat critical hit table. So all of these things are in the Bruiser class. Yes. The other thing that I like to point out is that the Patreon version has a little spot so I can write your name, so I can say thank you, so it is personalized to you. So that was November and December. Those shipped out. So what about January? So January, I mentioned in the last video, was probably going to be Desperation of the Hungry. Desperation of the Hungry is probably going to be pushed to February. I've run this a couple of times now, and I want to expand it beyond the pamphlet. It needs some tweaks, and those tweaks are going to take more space. So this is going to need to be expanded slightly. And so instead, I think I mentioned that I was starting an in-person open table group here in my house. Takes place in the dining room on the other side of this door. But to get them going, I created a Stennard Character Creation guide. And so this version was 8 pages. The one that will go out in January is going to be 12. And so what is in the Stennard Character Creation guide? This is everything you need to create a 0-level character, except for a 0-level character sheet. It goes through some bits about what Stennard is like, ability scores, and then your birth augur chart. This birth augur chart is slightly truncated to reflect life in Stennard. thing on modifiers, occupation chart. The occupation chart is the occupation chart from Rabid Dogs, but everything is switched over to the copper standard because there are some things that were on this chart where people had stuff that was valued in gold pieces, and you would be instantly rich in Stennard if you had a 20 gold piece gem as your starting trade good. So yeah, that was that needed to be altered slightly. What else? So other things that are not in Rabid Dogs. There is a Canine trait. My player in my open table campaign that has a Canine character is super excited that they rolled extra stinky. So yeah, so there's little stuff like that. There is a D24 additional equipment chart, and the additional equipment is different than a lot of the entries on the DCC rulebook additional equipment chart. There's a bit on food, copper, and hit points. I stole one of these ideas from Professor Dungeon Master on Dungeon Craft. When you roll for your starting copper, you can actually roll a negative roll. The modifier can make it a negative amount of money so that you start off in debt. And if you're in debt, there's going to be somebody out there that wants to claim that debt. Additionally, food can start off in the negatives to reinforce the famine aspect of Stennard. This is stuff that my online group, I've noticed they don't worry about any of this stuff, even though it exists. But I didn't make it something that was important. And so with my in-person group, I made sure that this highlighted that and made it very in your face. And it is working out fantastically because it is really driving the motivations of the party because they don't want to starve and they don't want to be in debt. And I love it. So I'm really excited to get this done and get this out to people. There is the same Canine name chart as well as a Stennardite name chart. There is other stuff. The final version is 12 pages. Additionally, it ends with the most important thing for you to live fully and die gloriously, and then it reinforces a bunch of the stuff having to do with grimdark play. Yeah, I think this is going to be something that people are going to like. It's gotten good feedback from my backers on Patreon, because on Patreon you're able to see the stuff as a work in progress and give feedback. So another little plug to become a patron. Okay, so where are we at? Let's talk about Kickstarters. Hillwood Camp. Hillwood Camp is almost done. I know I said that in the last video. It actually is almost done. I cranked out 6 pages this week. We've bumped up the page count. The page count was originally going to be about 24 pages. It is now up to 36 pages because I just keep wanting to include more stuff. Part of that has come from playtesting. So I actually just recently playtested some of the content with my online group. And yeah, it's been a huge boon to be able to have those people trying stuff out, pushing the buttons of the NPCs and trying out some of the encounters. Thank you, Jay, who is one of our Patreon members who is part of that group, but also to all of my Canadian friends, Rob, Greg, Darren, and Jay. So yeah, big stuff. But it's a huge thing to also almost have this done. I know it's part of the Cleft in the Mangled Hills Kickstarter, and I still have to finish Cleft in the Mangled Hills, but progress is progress, and being able to cross something off the list is huge. It's a huge part of how my brain works, and I'm going to talk about that more in a little bit. But yeah, big stuff. Protectorate of Jenulane, that's what you really are probably here to know about. That's the Kickstarter that's way late and that has way more backers. So let's talk about the Protectorate of Jenulane. Hey, let's show off some stuff, because showing off stuff is fun. I mentioned in the last video that I was reaching out to a new artist. This is work from Francesco Accordi. As you can see, hard black and white, hard contrast black and white style, very similar to the old school D&D rule books, the original monster manual for AD&D. So fantastic. I'm really excited. This is the Skulking Wretch from the Protectorate of Jenulane. This is the Skull Wisp from the Protectorate of Jenulane. And yeah, these are all things that I'm really, really excited about. And once again, it is progress. And one of the big things with Protector Jenulane is that I was really behind the ball on art. And here is one more piece. This is from Carlos Castillo. And this is the Pendulum Crossing. In playtesting, one of the things that I found out is that the Pendulum Crossing was, even though the description is very vivid, it's hard for people to picture. And so, especially because there is a ravine on one side, a cliff face on the other, and then you've got swinging sacks. And so this really helps to try and characterize that and make it obvious. So between this and the map of the encounter area, I think that's going to really help. And it also means that we've got another full page piece, and we're getting that much closer to getting the Protectorate of Jenulane done. This is a big deal. So, yeah, it's still going to take more time, but we're getting there. Crossing things off the list. Thank you for your patience. The next thing on my list is I want to talk about real life stuff. And so I'm going to get a little emo here, a little somber, but it's got a positive ending. And so I'm going to talk about it because we need to talk about real life stuff sometimes. So over the last year, in these videos, if you watched all of them, you know that I talked about separating from my partner. I also talked about buying a house. I think I talked about I have an elderly pit bull who right now we're kind of like discussing end of life stuff. So there's a lot going on. In that separation that I mentioned, my ex, she had given me basically a year to kind of get my shit together. And, we went to Europe together. I talked about that in one of the videos. It was a fantastic trip, but I never did the real things that she asked. And the big thing was to look into my mental health. She thought I had ADHD along with depression and some other things. And I just kind of, my brain just kind of blew it off. And after we hard separated, straight up not together anymore, I ended up stumbling upon a video about ADHD in adults. And in my moment of sadness and wondering, I clicked on it and I was like, shit, this is me. And so I ended up watching another video and another video and another video, watched one on ADHD and relationships, and I was like, oh, she mentioned this, she mentioned this, she mentioned this, she mentioned... And I was like, man. And so yeah, it was a real kick in the balls because ADHD was something that people had speculated about me for years, and I was just like, yeah, I probably do. Never really knowing how much it affects, just thinking that, yeah, my brain lacks focus, and so I jump from thing to thing. But it also gives me hyper focus, which means that I can zero in on a thing. So, hey, it's a positive. And just never managing the negatives. And so, the positive part of this story is a couple of things. One is I've got an appointment to meet with a doctor to talk about things on Tuesday. I'm very excited about this. I see this as a net positive. I also want to share this with others because I know that on Twitter, like Diogo Nogueira has talked about this along with a bunch of other RPG people that are on Twitter, that a lot of us think that we have this thing or might be just being diagnosed now. I believe Diogo found out that he had a similar thing because when his kid got diagnosed. And so the long and short of it is that there are big effects that these things, that this neurodiversity can have on your life. And I didn't even know it was considered neurodiverse, to be honest. And so I want to be able to manage this, and I want people like me, creatives, because a lot of us that are in gaming are drawn to gaming because we're super creative, and we can get super focused on these fantastical ideas and what have you, and it's part of our brains. But there's the procrastination and the lack of executive function, the emotional dysregulation. There's a bunch of these things that and those are all terms that I've learned in the last 2 weeks. But there are these things that we can be managing, and through therapy and through proper medication and life changes, like changes in our diet and exercise and what have you. Because I found out that I was coping with my brain focus issues with chocolate. Chocolate's a stimulant, and I reached a point where I was eating like 6 packs of Justin's dark chocolate peanut butter cups a day. And that's not healthy. That's not a good thing. And so it is something that I want to share with you, not to have a pity party for me, a little bit to help understand why sometimes these things are late. Whereas Wide-Eyed Terror, I shipped out right on time. Tome of Debasement was, a couple of weeks late, whereas Precipice of Corruption was months late, and now Protectorate of Jenulane months late. Hey, notice those were the big things, the full-size adventures, and they're much harder for me to stay focused on all the way through. And so this has been a learning experience. I can look back now and see how this has affected so many things in my life, and I am so happy to actually be doing something about it. And if you think that you have ADHD, talk to a doctor, see if this is something that's affecting your life. So that's my PSA. All that being said, we're going to end on more gaming stuff. I've got conventions coming up. I'm going to be at Midwinter here in Milwaukee in January. I'm going to be at both GaryCon and briefly make an appearance at AdeptiCon in March. I'll probably schedule something else somewhere in between. So those are things to look forward to. I am now the co-host of The Scrivenary on the Goodman Games Twitch with Trevor Stamper from Tales of the Smoking Worm. We've had some really great guests lately, so go back on YouTube and find those videos. We just interviewed Levi Combs, talked to Aaron Creeder, lots of great creators. I can't say enough good things about what we are doing with The Scrivenary and talking to people about self-publishing. I am going to be booking the guests for the first few months of January, December, March. So first few months of 2023. If you've got a project that you are working on for DCC or MCC, please reach out. If you're going to be launching for Zine Quest 4, or if you've got a Kickstarter that's going to be launching around then for like an adventure or what have you, reach out. We would love to have you and talk to you about self-publishing on the Goodman Games Twitch. So that is everything that I've got. Sorry that I got a little somber there, but I think it's an important thing to discuss because we don't talk about mental health enough. And yeah, I know that this has been a really important awakening for me. You can support Breaker Press Games. We've got content available on DriveThruRPG, on itch.io, soon on Roll-App, which is my VTT of choice. But the big thing, obviously, is Patreon. Get physical rewards. Get cool stuff every month from me. And it's bite-sized content, so I can actually get it done in a timely fashion, and so it will be on time. At least the last 3 months. Perfect. Got a perfect record. So yeah, definitely check out Patreon if that sounds interesting to you. I really, really enjoy having the Patreon community. Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for supporting indie games and supporting indie game designers. I am Nick from Breaker Press Games. You have a fantastic week and a fantastic holiday season. I will talk to you all soon. Bye.